Good day everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Now this video is going to be doing all the paths, the 100%ing guide to variant 7. Now as a lot of you know, there will be a link in the description that takes you to this spreadsheet. It is a spreadsheet that is divided between number 1, a prep or cheat sheet. This gives you the information as to champions that are hashtag hero that can take on the content. The second part to this spreadsheet is the middle tab. The middle tab is the completion and boss guide. So this is a very kind of like basic thing that kind of allows you to do the, again, completion and bosses. So it doesn't need to be further explained. That's when we go on to what we're going to be talking about in this video, which is the exploration guide. It's a tab right at the very bottom, and this spreadsheet is available in the link in the description or on my Discord, where we've got various different rooms, like a variant room, like so many different others, where you can click on and you can grab all the information and advice that you want. So we're going to be going over this lovely spreadsheet that's on screen right now. And we've also got information of an infographic. This infographic is done by Quishy, which goes over everything that you need to know here, but it's up to you, like whatever you kind of like utilize for the point of the 100%ing. I just think Squishy is someone that I'm going to be working with a lot more in the future, and as well puts together some amazing infographics. He actually did the one that was the Cavalier cheat sheet, if you guys remember that. So on screen now, we've got chapter 1 or map 1 or 1.1, whatever you want to describe it, and it's got the various different counters to this. We're also going to be switching to the in-game in a second, but if you do want something that gives you all the advice, then do check out Squishy and all the different types of visual counters, because mine will be more of a kind of a spreadsheet and typing, but this one indeed will be a different type, and all has the chapter 2 and chapter 3 respectively. Go to the link in the description and go and check out that. Right, so let's begin with 1.1. In 1.1 there's a lot of energize. Energize is actually one of the most annoying nodes that comes up, and it's something that is in chapter 1.1 and also 1.2. This is when the enemy champions get like power really quickly, and I think this is always best to have a power control option. There are a few mystics out there that can power control, and I would say that if you've got a Psylocke, which is a mutant, or a Magique, which is indeed a mystic, you can have some good interactions with some of the different champions, but that is just one of my top picks there. There are some really kind of like easier lanes, but also there's a few kind of like annoying lanes. Most of chapter 1 can be absolutely cheesed with Archangel if you have one. If you don't, then indeed it's all about having those different champions that do different things. On the path 1 of 1.1 is Mutant Wrath, so mutant champions are going to apply very well. And as I said, Psylocke is a cool option to take you in. Bleed vulnerability on path 2 and poison vulnerability do indeed set yourself up for a Black Widow Clairvoyant if you have it, or any other champion that applies a poison or does any kind of bleed based effect, which could be of a great usage. And then you got path 3 of 1.1, which is enhanced SP2 and energize. Again, pointing out champions that can do power control options would be the best for this. Sorcerer Supreme, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Iceman, Magic, Psylocke, which are, you know, a lot of it can be counters or kind of like effective enough against those particular nodes. Okay, now we move on to 1.2. In 1.2, there are some really decent matchups and pair-ups, and I would say if you've got Archangel, you're literally going to slay a lot of this, especially if you're looking to have an option to build up to the end boss. Or you could go for any champions that suppress things like Evade, like Iceman, or you can look to Sorcerer Supreme with that slow debuff that the champion does, and it's something to bear in mind. However, though, the paths and interactions will require you to have a champion that does a slow debuff. Also, DragonMan for the end boss is a good option, and especially when you're going down this lane, I would say anything that is applying that slow debuff to suppress anything like Unstoppable that you get from Annihilus. Also, the way that you could deal with champions like Wasp is another thing. Archangel, yeah, just blitzes a lot of things, but do bear in mind, if you're going against Ebony Maw, use a champion that's got high debuff damage, so look out for anything that does that. Any ability accuracy reduction can be of assistance. Also, when it comes to Terex, I use Namor against this, but still there is a good call to use any other champion that can look to punish in any kind of way. but high debuff champions will be a good option to go down. There's a few scuffy things here or there, but this is a pretty much kind of straightforward thing. If you're indeed following the guide, which is on screen now, then indeed look out for Sorcerer Supreme to take down Path 1, especially with Ancient Knowledge, and then Path 2, any Mystics that get the bonuses from Arcane Torrent. Heavy debuff champs to deal with everybody more, so like high debuff damage champions, and then anything that's Mystic Wrap on buffet. Slow debuff champs to deal with Waspa and Annihilus. That's kind of a given with that. But yeah, there's a lot of champions out there. If you look to the champ prep sheet of this, you'll find some like really kind of like good options, especially for the damage that can be done with the likes of Namor with bleeds, Incinerates with Cable, and if you've got Cable with the Degen synergy, then you can look to have like some really kind of good pairs with Apocalypse. So do bear in mind that could be an option for you to kind of have on your team. Although you cannot use Apocalypse, it's still handy to have that backup, so to speak. Or if you want to use Magneto, House of X, and any kind of great kind of situations, then again that is another option for you. Okay, now moving on to 2.1. In 2.1, whether or not you're prepping yourself for a certain champion to take on the end boss, FYI for me, Falcon was one of the better options, but you can use Nick Fury. It's just a case of playing to what you feel is going to be the better options to take on the content. When it comes to Path 1 and Overclocked, champions of heavy attack rotations are good, like Warlock, parry heavy, Guillotine 2099, Civil Warrior, and Iron Man Infinity War. Especially because we've got Tech Wrath, we've got Overclocked, and as well we've got Power Shield, but also you've got to bear in mind you've got Rising Sun. That's why the heavy attack comes into play, because Rising Sun is going to find yourself in a spot of bother if you don't land a heavy attack and remove said Furies, because it ain't good for you at all to go down that route. On path number 2 is Physical Perfection, Bleed, Vulnerability, Conflictor. So skill champs, usually the best for this. Nick Fury, Blade, Gwenpool, you know, the list goes on with bleed champions that could be kind of like really good for this because of bleed vulnerability, of course. And then we've got Flare and Spite. Now with Flare and Spite, this is a bit of an iffy one for what you're going to do, and I think most champions do very well. I personally use Black Widow Deadly Origin and absolutely slayed this lane, but it's good to have a champion that deals with the healing nature of Mr. Sinister. So anything like Warlock is actually a good fit for this, especially if you're looking to do some parry heavies. Well, I wouldn't say a champion that has a buff with Spite, but definitely kind of preparation and kind of like going for Mr. Sinister, which is really touching the edge, because you'll be having that armor up buff with Warlock, or any champion that does do a buff, but still, you know, it can be quite effective. Most champions nowadays, Kabama putting in and redoing or buffing, seem to have some kind of like passives, which is better for kind of interaction against some of the older nodes, like indeed Spite. It's just a shame we couldn't have any Red Guardian down on this route. And for the final route, which is the Physical Resistance, Stack, Overflow, and Overclocked. So basically any tech champions, Spider-Man, Stark Enhanced would be good. Blade, yeah, good build of damage. Civil Warrior, that anything really will do quite nicely against any of the interactions you might have on this path. And now on to the 5 paths of 2.2. 2.2 has some very kind of weird replications in that it's like copy and paste for the first 2 paths. So for this, for the top one, you're going to be needing a champion that is a tech champion, does heal block, and as well has the ability to have an armor. And this indeed is Warlock, but don't rule out Iron Man Infinity War, Hulkbuster, and various other champions. Do consult the spreadsheet for more info on that. But at the same time, most champions will do, especially for the high rate of damage that you would do with any other champion that has any high bleed debuffs. So what is the other thing with this? Well, Mephisto right here becomes a little bit of a frustration, and heal block champions again are essential for this particular interaction. Look towards again the lines of Hulkbuster, Warlock, and also Iron Man Infinity War for dealing with this. But as well, there are other techs out there that indeed do a heal block. So that's something to bear in mind, and something that's very important. Some other heal block tech champions: Civil Warrior, Darkhawk, Howard the Duck, and that's actually pretty much it. Vision as well. If you've got a Vision, if you've got a 5-star Vision, then hey, that's going to be a great kind of like interaction and and look at this, especially for dealing with arc overload, which is one of the problematic things of the first two paths. Then when it becomes paths 3, 4, and 5, well, what is and what are these all about? Well, on path 3 we've got Counter Strike, Aggressive, and Bubble Shield. And for this, I'd say debuff champs make light work of this. So Nick Fury, Black Widow, Deadly Origin, Blade, and you can make your intercept game on point, especially because, look, Bubble Shield's annoying. Like, a lot of the times I do play it very kind of like, okay, well, let's do some parries and stuff and take stuff in a block. But you need to learn yourself to like intercept more, which is something I've tried to do, especially after doing Act 6.3.6 and that Cap Infinity War annoyance of a boss, just learning to do that a little bit more, especially with destructive feedback. Then when it comes to path 4 has Hard Knock Life. Again, same principle. When you do that well-timed block, it's going to be annoying. So try and be in the block rather than anything else. It's not like Bubble Shield. It's like you can be in the block, still get hit, and you won't have the loss or the impact of Hard Knock Life. It's not really the best thing in the world to do that, but it's an option. Especially when dealing with this, you'll need champions that have got an armor break in order to take down the likes of Emma Frost, because Emma Frost is very, very annoying, especially if you're going up against her. Usually I use Corvus against it, but you can't do it in this time. So any champion that does an armor break that is a tech or a skill is a very good option for this. So shout out to Hulkbuster armor breakers like Howard the Duck and Warlock. So yeah, go and check them out. And in the final path, any champion works, but Nick Fury, parry heavy champions, do some real damage, Warlock and Black Widow Deadly Origin. If you've seen some of my streams, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen this on stream where we just completely blitz the enemy with doing all that damage, especially stun vulnerability being such an absolute beast. But heavy assault is also the other thing when it comes to this. So heavy assault can be a real kind of asset to you if indeed you go parry heavy to do some great damage, especially with flare. So watch out with flare as well, because you're going to be taking some damage in degen very, very quickly. Now it's on to chapter 3.1. 3.1 is where things are ramped up a little bit, especially with taking on the end boss Venom at the end. Again, I have kind of covered like boss battles, when do check out the completion and boss guide of the spreadsheet. The main thing to really point out if you are looking to kind of take on any of these bosses, in particular Venom, is try and keep the champion to the SP1 as much as possible, and certain champions that punish doing regular special attacks like Spider-Ham can be a great asset. Even with the buff of Mr. Fantastic, can seem a very, very good option to take it on, especially with those 3 pre-fights which suppress things like debuff damage, but mainly it's a case of suppressing the likes of power gain and defensive power gain, so the Petrify and other respectively, because this champion, what I believe, has Energize. If it doesn't, then I definitely know, which oh yes, it does have Energize. See, sometimes I am right about stuff. But look, let's focus on the paths, because that's what this guide is all about. The top is a problem, especially going up against Mojo. It's like degen damage, it's going to be pretty annoying. So champions that shrug off or kind of like deal with debuff effects, I would say maybe try Mr. Fantastic against this, but Human Torch deals with them a lot. Red Guardian, just using like parry and heavy methods. She-Hulk and many smaller champions are kind of an option, because here's the problem. This is all about size matters, so you'll need mainly XL champions. So parry heavy base champions are normally the best way to go, unless you want to go down the route of XL based champions. These are just the most effective ones that I've found taking on said content. And as we're going down to path 2. Path 2 has Science Wrath, Split Atom, Critical Setup, and Crit Me with your best shot. For this one, I think I actually did this when it was bugged. I think first time round did this when it was potentially bugged, and utilized Beardo for this one, especially using the SP2. But do bear in mind, I don't know if that's always the best thing to do, especially with Split Atom. You may try to use different champions, which I did, that were not Science. I actually ended up using Hyperion for this, or I think it was as well. No, I tried to use Cosmic Ghost Rider for this as well, because of aptitude and trying to guarantee myself that critical hit. But any Science champions are really applicable for this. Hulk Ragnarok, Immortal Hulk, I would say are your kind of like greatest options for this. But any kind of Science champions that would more consecutively and consistently crit are going to be the best ones to kind of go up against this. And next up, we have got Path 3. Path 3 sees some very weird things like Stellar Pulse and Psychic Thorns, but as well Life Transfer. And any champion really does for this fine, because any champion that is Cosmic will do the job to take this down. I think there's actually some that are, yeah, it's just Cosmic for this. So it's just Cosmic, so any kind of like Cosmic champion, Medusa, Hyperion, Angela, Cat Marvel movie. I would say Angela may be a better option if you've got a high signature version, just to kind of like mitigate some of the damage. In any case, moving on to the next part, which is Split Atom Critical Resistance. Again, nothing really to talk about here that's too impressive. Watch out for Bishop on the lane, but any kind of science champion does against us. I'm not going to say that one stands out, because like you can say any science champion that is a god tier. Mr. Fantastic. Have you seen some of my content? Same thing with She-Hulk. The same thing with Human Torch. The same thing with Spider-Ham. It's just who you have that you're good with, that's maybe your go-to champion, that's science, rather than saying one champion in particular for this. And then you got the final route, which is indeed path number 5, which is Cosmic Wrath, Energize, SP2, Bias, and Cosmic Champions, non-bleeders for Cable. Medusa is a great option for Warlock, so that's something to bear in mind there. But any Cosmic Champion really will do, and I would say if you're looking to do this as your first completion route, that bottom one may be your best one. Unless you do what I did, which was I recommended people to start with the most difficult one. So it just kind of in case you get it out, so it's like easier from there on in. And now on to the final mission and the final chapter. This is 3.2. 5 paths, all very different, some very kind of unique and kooky and weird stuff. Let's begin with Path 1, which is Great Power, Great Responsibility, Strike Back and Breakthrough. It's a very unusual kind of like weird pair up, especially because a lot of these have Spider-Verse villains, and basically saying to you, hey, have you got a Spider-Verse champion? Kind of. You can use something really cool against this. And if you've got any science versions of Spider champions you've ranked up, then maybe this will be kind of like a good kind of interaction. I would say that if you've got Red Goblin and you've got yourself a symbiote Spidey, you will find yourself an insane armor-breaking champion that can also build a lot of fury-based damage and a lot of damage. Sorry, not fury. A lot of damage as a result. That can be really effective to take on this particular path. So if you've got that, you got that. If you don't, then that's fine. Especially because like any champion really does for this. Medusa, Angela, Cap, you name it, like anything can really do this. And the same narrative is that if you've got Hyperion for a lot of stuff, you're able to kind of smack in a great amount of damage. It's just got to watch out for Strike Back. Strike Back will kind of kick you in the butt. This path 2 is actually pretty effective if you've got those champions and more. So for Cosmic Wrath and also buffed up, utilizing the likes of Medusa, Angela, Cap with now Hyperion, Angela, Cosmic Ghost Rider. But also I would say Medusa with Black Bolt and just like a whole host of other different champions can be very, very effective to take on this particular content. For those like the old school stuff, Black Bolt and Medusa can be working incredibly well for you. And as well when you're going on to Path 3, which is just down the middle, if you've got that pesky Dark Hawk kind of like slap down, and I would say that if you've got yourself Medusa, it's great to interact with the hashtag robot. But any champions that do any armor break can be very effective against this as well. Also, don't undermine the likes of kind of like other Cosmics or any champion that can do effective armor breaks. I'm not sure if like you use Mr. Fantastic against this, especially with a few synergies that he has, but still it's all good. And if you've got yourself a Cap with a Cosmic champion, you can get the armor breaks synergy with there, so that's something to bear in mind as well. Moving on to Path 4. Path 4 is Split Atom, Smash, and Smash, Bash, and Poison. So She-Hulk, if you've got it, any champion doesn't need poison immunity, but I would say it's unfortunately playing into the Hulk narrative of Hulk, Ragnarok, Immortal Hulk, She-Hulk, OG Hulk, and if you've got Human Torch in your team, or something strong to deal with the likes of Mephisto, which is on this path, and as well for Ebony Maw right at the very end. You might need something for that, and maybe a Cap Infinity War would be a good option for it as well. This then leads on to the final path. The final path doesn't actually seem that bad, especially by the champions you face off against, but it's Flux Dispersal. Flux Dispersal and Bane of Damballa. So any science or cosmic champions work, but you'll just need the counter for Ebony Maw at the end. just heavy attack to remove flux dispersals whenever you feel ready to do so. And there we go, that has been the guide, that has been the breakdown, that's been all the paths, that has been everything you need to know. This spreadsheet is fully updated, so go and check it out, link is in the description, and as well on Discord. And also check out Papa Squishy's infographic that is on his Twitter, link is in the description down below. And thank you so much for watching this video. Please check out some other content that's located on screen now, and I'll see you all very soon whenever that will be. Bye bye.